Our first question comes from Shirley, and she asks two questions. First being, how many times per day is the right amount to meditate? And the second being, how do you stop the mind chatter? Which is a very popular question, and a number of people asked it. However, we're going to give credit to Shirley for that one. So how many times per day is the right amount, Oliver?
There is no right amount per se. You want to figure out for yourself how much time you can make available for meditation. And I find that it's a good idea to start out slow because meditation, especially when you're a beginner, can become frustrating if you just sit there and you don't know exactly what you're looking for and what the effects are going to be. So ideally you want to start out with maybe 5 minutes a day and set a time for that and commit to that. Maybe early in the morning right after you wake up is an excellent time because you're less likely to fall asleep. Once you've been up, brushed your teeth, maybe go back to bed, sit or even lay down and take those 5 minutes. Set your alarm clock and then go on with your day. But any time is a good time to meditate, really. A lunch break is perfect. If you're in a corporate environment, taking these 5 or 10 minutes to sit still somewhere will make a huge difference. But you don't have to go out and meditate 10 times a day. I don't think the benefits of that are any bigger than doing it maybe once or twice a day.
I think that once per day is the right way to start. But I would prefer that people initially do 30 minutes if possible, and that may not be possible because you might already be busy. And then in that case, a couple minutes a day. There's a website, Do Nothing for 2 minutes, and you can literally just try to just quiet your mind for 2 minutes and stare at the screen. Getting a couple breaths in and disengaging is technically meditation. So if you can find a way to do that, that's the most important thing. So I would agree there's no right amount. Now, one benefit to meditating for 30 minutes at least once a week is then when you are then doing the 5 minutes a day on the other days, you can get more quickly to that meditative state when you have like a baseline. That's do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, yeah, I would agree with that.
That's my sound engineer telling me that. I agree with him.
And
Cool.
don't force yourself to meditate. You know, if you have a day where it's absolutely not possible, then there is no use in forcing yourself to sit down and meditate. But over time, as you feel the benefits, you'll be wanting to meditate more, and then you'll automatically will set time aside.
And I would add, if you find that there's times where repeatedly days that you can't find time to meditate, there are meditations in which we'll get into the technology later where you can meditate while you're doing something. And that's a good way if you say, well, I got to do this Excel spreadsheet for 3 hours this afternoon, and then I got to get in the car and get back to home to the kids, and then I'm not going to have time, be too tired. Well, do a meditation while you're working, and it actually can help you get things done faster. And we'll talk about that later. Just keep that in mind.
All right, and then the second part of the question was, how do you get rid of that mind chatter? Now, that's the tricky part in that whole meditation process. For me, what works best is to bring myself back into the moment. When I start to become aware of mind chatter, I take a deep breath and I set the attention to be present. And most of the times that works really well. There's different techniques you can use. In a lot of traditions, you're being asked to acknowledge the thoughts that come in, don't judge them, let them pass through. If that works for you, that's another approach you can try. How about you?
I agree that approach is something you can try, and I personally, doesn't work at all for me. I've read it over and over, so obviously it does work for some people, but I remember when I first started getting excited about meditation, I read a book, I think it was called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and it talked about watching the thoughts. And when I watch thoughts, I start thinking more, and it doesn't work for me. That being said, the whole point of these in personal development is personal experience. That personal word really comes into play. So try that, because if watching thoughts works for you, you can do it anywhere. Now, my personal favorite for shutting the thoughts down is to Om out loud, or to do mantra, and to do that as loud as possible with a Om. Something about that sound vibration and that just oming over and over again for about a minute it just really works well for setting my brain into a state of shutting up. So that's what works for me the best. So thank you for that, Shirley.
Hope that helped.
Now, the next question we have here is from Dave in Chicago. And he says, can technology aid in meditation? And what progress has been made in the last few years?
Hi, Dave. Technology can very well be used in meditation, and there's different technologies around. I've tried a few myself. The one that I'm most excited about is HemiSync, which was developed by the Monroe Institute in Virginia. And HemiSync gives you a whole variety of possibilities to meditate, started from guided meditations through the exploration of different states of consciousness. If you're looking for silent time, like a Zen type meditation, I don't know if technology is the right approach, but if you're looking for more of an active meditation where you experience kinesthetic, visual or auditive signals and messages coming through, technology can be very helpful, since it might be aiding in keeping you awake, for example, and keeping your awareness a little bit more steady. I also am a big fan of floating tanks. I have done a lot of experimentation with that. Floating tanks let you leave your body behind, since you're floating, and your awareness of the body itself diminishes after a few minutes. And if you combine a floating tank session with binaural beats or HemiSync, for example, that can lead to very extensive experiences, meditation experiences.
You know, there's a floating tank a quarter mile from my place, and I've never been. I gotta go. I'll ever head to the airport in a couple hours. I may drop them and then head over there. I would add a development that's been somewhat more recent is something called a sound bed. And the sound engineer from the Meditation Mind and other pursuits, Chuck Wilson, was one of the developers of those. And they apparently, it looks kind of like a tanning bed, but it's just shoots sound waves through your body, so it's literally your whole body's hearing the music. And the music generally would be meditative music, or even with binaural beats, so that you will be able to experience it on a whole new level, not just listening. Your whole body's vibrating to the sound. So that would be a progress that's been made in the last few years. Now, we've been mentioning binaural beats, and for some people that's not going to make a lot of sense to them. Do you want to explain briefly how a binaural beat works?
Binaural beats were discovered by a German scientist in the 19th century, and to keep it real simple, what happens is you get one tone of frequency into one ear and another tone into the other ear, and through that difference in frequency, you will your brain will experience a type of vibration, and that helps you to get into altered states of consciousness. And that's a real simple version.
And I would add I would go to the next level, just because I know a lot of people come to the website searching theta meditation as a Google search. There's different brainwaves ranges that have been identified, and these waves are frequencies of electrical impulse that's buzzing through your head. And what the binaural beat does is sort of says, hey, I'm now giving you this signal at, let's say, 3 hertz, which is delta. And your brain equates a delta frequency with sleep. And so if you're trying to sleep, you listen to a brainwave meditation that has delta waves in it. And it's not going to suddenly take over your brain, but it's sort of like tuning a radio dial, and it says, hey, over here is the range of sleep. Why don't you start matching up your brain waves with this particular frequency that we're buzzing in? And then your brain tends to do that because you allow it to, and you say, oh, that does sound nice, because presumably you're listening to it because you want to sleep. And then that's kind of how it works. And so through experimentation, it was found that you can move that radio dial of perception all along and open up to different areas for focus, for concentration, for trying to experience different energy levels and different perceptions, and for energy and for sleep, among many applications. And so that's when you hear us say binaural beats, if we say it any time in the future, that's what we're referring to. Thanks for that, Dave. Good question there. Well, they all are. That was a...
Or maybe what we can mention before we go on to the next question, since Dave was asking about new developments and new technologies, the Monroe Institute is currently working on a brand new audio technology as a meditation aid, which we can't really elaborate too much on, but it's something you can be looking forward to, I'm sure, because whatever they're working on is usually pretty good. You might want to check their website at www.monroeinstitute.org once in a while, and the technology is going to be called SAM, S-A-M, and they already have a link, and they're explaining in detail what it will be about.
Next question comes from Dikesh, and the question is, I am not feeling the same experience as described by other people like Osho and Mahabir, etc. Am I doing something wrong?
No, absolutely not, because meditation is a very personal process, and nobody will experience the same thing the next person does. It is individual, and that's really all I can say to that. Meditation does not have a goal per se. So, in order to get somewhere, there is 1,000 roads to get there, and it's different sightseeing spots on every road, and other people might just experience different sceneries than you do. But whatever you experience, that's your path, and that's where you're supposed to be.
I would add, comparing yourself to someone else, their descriptions of an experience are going to be different because they've had different life history. So, and each person has different perceptual skills. It's kind of like in the physical world where some people can run faster than others, some people can speak better than others, people can hear better, etc., with the senses. That's the same thing when you're in a meditation. You'll have different skill levels at the different perceptions. Kurt Leland has identified 22 different senses that you have in the non-physical. And so based on where you're at in your development of each different sense is what you're going to take back from the experience. So one person might describe a blinding white light because that's their level of experience. They were able to perceive some light. While another person might say, I heard the most incredible music I've ever heard, and then I saw a bearded guru trying to talk to me, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. And that's not the same experience because it's two separate people, but they may have encountered the same area in the non-physical world, and they're just describing it differently based on the tools that they have to help figure out what went on. So I wouldn't necessarily choose any one person to say this is what I need to achieve in order to know I'm doing something right. It's more about the discipline of meditating every day or as much as you can to help get your own spiritual growth path going.
It's also about the development of your senses. It is part of the process to find out if you're more of a visual type, more of an auditory type, or more of a kinesthetic type. It took me a few years to find that out, and it's about listening to the signals that come in. Essentially, they're all coming from one source. It's a matter of interpretation of your brain, and it might send the signals to either your eyes, to your ears, to your body as such, or sometimes it's just a sense of knowing without having a clear picture or feeling about a certain...
Yeah, because you could be you could have your brain on looking for something that you read that Osho said is going to happen, and then you're missing out. You could have something going on that you're missing because you're just so narrow-minded focus on the one particular experience. I know that happened a lot to me where I was initially I could feel things more, but I was constantly looking for a visual of myself floating out of my body, and therefore I missed all kinds of cool stuff. And then once I finally stopped worrying about floating out of my body and started saying, hey, what else is going on, I started having all kinds of cool experiences. And so I was blocking a lot of cool stuff just because I was doing just like you, Dikesh. I was looking, instead of Osho, I was trying to say, hey, well, Robert Monroe said this is going to happen. why isn't it happening? And I got really discouraged. And then when I finally gave up on that, a whole world opened up to me. So, thank you for that question. Oh, you have any more to add?
I do, as a matter of fact. What also comes into play is setting a clear intention before you start your meditation session. And that helps you to tune into what's there. If you want to have some silent time and just calm down and not necessarily experience any kind of out of body or visuals or auditory things, it's a good thing to say, I just want to be silent. And maybe I'm open for anything, or even narrow it down and say, I just want quiet time because that's what I need most. And if I'm out for adventures, I state that clearly in my intention beforehand, or in my affirmation that I tend to use before I start a meditation.
What would that be? Because some people get caught up in the details. So you're saying, hey, I want to try to have a perceptual adventure while I'm meditating. What's your intention? And when do you say it in your process?
I say it before I sit down, or first thing after I sit down, I say the affirmation, and it's pretty much like a wish list that I'm putting out. Mm-hmm. And I drop my expectations, because just because I wish for something, it's just like Christmas. I might not necessarily get it, but I might get something a lot more valuable and bigger and more important for me at this time. So it's important, if you work with affirmations for your meditations, to be clear, precise in what you're looking for, but drop your expectations and let go of your affirmation and let the universe take care of whatever is best for you.
I'm going to jump to another question here because it's kind of related on that topic. By the way, thanks to Kesh for those questions. And this is from Ken. And he said, greetings, Scott and Oliver. What is the most effective approach to receive the very best results in guided meditations using pre-scripted affirmations for attracting wealth? And you mentioned the expectations, and so let's touch into that while you're on this question, if you can.
Expectations are a very tricky thing, because you set yourself up for, I won't necessarily say failure, but for an experience that has a different outcome than what you would have wished for. There's a big difference between an intention and an expectation. I can always intend for something to happen, but I need to be able to let go in order for the universe to, unwrap this wish and work with it. If I hold on to it, I do not only block my own mind, but I also block the universe from being able to open that wish list and to take care of it.
I like that analogy. I'm always reflecting on why I have or don't have what I currently have or I'm trying to get. And I found that what you said is interesting, because when for example, I was very intent on a specific dollar amount, and then I was receiving that dollar amount and then some, which made me very excited, but then I realized I was literally working around the clock to get it. And I had up on my desk a quote which I loved, but was probably counteracting what I was trying to do. And it said, he was willing to work as hard as it took to be successful, or something along those lines. And Oliver took one look at it and was just horrified, rightfully so, because that's what was happening. I was always on my phone answering email. I was working 16 hours, working on the weekends, and I was making a lot of money, but I want to be able to enjoy my life as well. So I had to go back and fine-tune the affirmations quite a bit in order to start getting to a place where I actually had free time to enjoy my family and things like meditation webinars, rather than just constantly working on databases. So, and when I had put in the intention of money, I also had the belief that, hey, it takes a lot of hard work, and I also had the expectation. I was like, I'm going to make it through database work. That's how I'm going to make all this money. And so I had already decided that that's how I was going to make it. So I didn't really give the universe a lot of options as to how else to deliver it. And now I have been working on reprogramming that, and it's starting to come to fruition. So I'm excited about that.
Can you read the question one more time?
Yeah, it was the most effective approach to receive the very best results in guided meditations using pre-scripted affirmations. And then as one example, he gave was attracting wealth. So there's a couple things in there. The best results in guided meditations, affirmations, and then attracting wealth. Which this question could be
Okay,
a lot.
I'm just going to say something here that might sound a little bit odd, but I'm not a big fan of scripted guided meditations for to attract wealth, because what it comes down to is your vibration and your feeling. And if you want to attract something into your life, then it has to be in your own words. It has to be in your own language. And I would use those phrases and statements that are given in those pre-written guided meditations, but I would actually make them my own and reword them. That's at least what works best for me.
I think what works best for me is to concentrate on the feeling more than the precise wording. When I get caught up in precise wording, I tend to disengage emotionally from what I want. I mean, but if I can really plug into how it feels, then I can just sort of hold that feeling, then that helps attract things from me. And that goes back to the question of comparing yourself to Osho, where he may have been more of a visual guy, and the Dikesh who wrote that particular question may be more of a feeling person or a hearing. Whatever you find through your experimentation is your strongest senses is how I would try to program in what you're trying to attract. So for Ken, if you're asking this question because guided, you've been listening to them and you're not happy with the results, then I would experiment with either visualizing or feeling or hearing, and with the visualization, you can picture looking at yourself as in a movie, or you can picture you looking out of it with your own eyes, so when you say, now I want to hear for your opinion, so when you're trying to put it in your own words, so let's say you've decided, hey, I want to go on a $5,000 a week spiritual retreat, which I don't even know if there is some, but there probably is. I don't necessarily think the cost always matters as how effective it is, but that's a whole separate topic. So let's say you want a very expensive spiritual retreat. So you need the time off, you need the money, and you need to actually take the gumption to go do it. Now, how would you go about programming that?
Well, I've actually done exactly that. I would sit down, close my eyes, and try to get a feel for how I would feel during that retreat. What would the benefits be? How would I feel during that retreat? And then I do use words, even sometimes they're in my mind, they're silent. I would say, I am now part of this wonderful retreat in Costa Rica, and I'm enjoying myself tremendously with all these people surrounding me and all the nature and all the love. And I see myself in that situation, and that's the key to attracting, because you're manifesting as you're thinking and putting these things out. And if you see yourself in the future, then it's probably not going to happen until your next life, maybe, because what happens here is now. So whatever you try to manifest, you got to get a sense of now. It is happening now, in this very moment.
And I've tried a lot of different words. I keep, whenever I change my intentions and affirmations, I've been into this for about a decade. I save the previous version so I can go back and see what I was doing at the time, which I think is going to make a really cool book someday, hopefully. And I noticed that I've tried things like saying I am now in the process of, and that's the brutal way to do it. Don't do that, because if you're always in the process, and the teacher that taught me that, the point they were trying to make was if you don't buy like if you go around programming, hey, I'm a millionaire, and you just keep telling yourself, I'm a millionaire, and you know you're not, and then you start thinking, hey, I'm not a millionaire, then the thinking behind saying, I'm in the process of becoming a millionaire, I thought, oh, that makes sense because I'm in the process. But then you're affirming that you're in the process and you're actually getting there. So my question from Scott in Chicago to Oliver of Parts in Germany and California are, when you're trying to make a big leap, how do you fight with so someone that hears, okay, I want to go on a $2,000, $5,000 retreat, and I currently am living check to check. So when I say I am now doing this, it makes me bummed out that I can't do it. Or what advice would you give them?
Be in the moment. That's the key. Take a deep breath. As soon as you feel any kind of frustration coming up, take a deep breath. And if you can't let go of that frustration, then there's a reason for it. Then you might want to give it some thought and feel the resistance, feel it out. Get a sense of that. What is really behind that? Not being able to get into the mode. But it's also a matter of training. Once you have certain little successes in your book, in your journal, you will start realizing that it works and that you can actually picture yourself, feel yourself in situations that are so far out, if you think about them rationally and logically. But start with a parking spot, or start with finding change on the street. That's what I did when I first started out using the law of attraction. How would it feel to find $1 somewhere in a store while I'm shopping? And guess what? I did not only find $1, I found a bunch of dollars over time. Just because
I might be missing some out of my wallet. Found them out of my pocket.
If you think that retreat is just a step too far for you right now, and you feel that resistance, start with something small that you can actually get a grip on, that you can feel, where you don't have a resistance coming up when you say, I see myself now, or I am finding a dollar bill right now. And keep your eyes open, because they're all over the place. There's so many dollar bills, it's not even funny. Just takes a lot of time to collect them all. So I'd like to take 1,000 at a time rather than just one by one.
You brought up a point that it's probably more a reflex for us now, which is the journaling and self-observation. And it helps to keep track of a journal. A journal doesn't have to be some big diary with a lock and key, or it could be, or it could just be a little Word file on your computer that you put a password on or don't. And something to keep track of, to sort of check in with yourself, because the more you're aware and I like to treat my life kind of as a laboratory of experimentation, because then I can see, that's how I make progress. I look and see, hey, okay, what's the evidence? Where am I at right now? And then I can look and say, okay, like today, okay, I went out for breakfast, we walked around the city, I hung out with my daughter some, we did this webinar, I did some conference calls, but it's been a flow between business, pleasure, and meditation. It's been nice, and that's what I wanted to get. So today's going to get a good rating for me when I look at my journal the next day. But the process of reflecting on where you're at and looking for evidence that you're making progress can be very supportive, so that you don't give up when you're making strides. So, great question.
All right,
Ken.
sounds good.
Another question he had kind of in here, which maybe he just wanted what we were asking, maybe not, but the best results in guided meditations. Now, there's a lot of different processes behind those. And what in your opinion, I mean, I know that the best results are the ones that you find work best for you. What are some things that people can play with in their guided meditation process, or their meditation process on their own, or different things to download? What are some things to look for that are big differentiators in a guided meditation process?
Well, first of all, I don't like to look for results in a guided meditation. I like to look at it as a journey, and the journey is the result in the end. If you let yourself go with the flow, since it is a guided meditation, things will start to happen automatically.
That's a good point, because sometimes I do a lot of goal-orientated, and sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes I wake up because I fell asleep, or sometimes I'm just a little frustrated that it didn't really do much for me because I was expecting a big wow. So that's a good learning for me to consider. I would add experiment.
Don't experiment with the dog.
Kaya, shut up. Good girl. I swear I just heard that.
No.
Nope. Not at all. Okay, let's start that one over again. So we're going to cut Ken out.
we're talking way too long. These answers.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
they're okay. I mean, I'd rather give good answers than cut them short for a soundbite. Soundbite things I always leave me wondering. Oh, I wish they got into the details. So I'd rather get into the details in this one. Okay, start again.
which one are we doing
I'm
now?
gonna do Ken's result guided meditation piece over.
Okay, but we have the.
Does that get picked up with this mic? I thought this mic didn't pick anything up but the words.
Well, if someone says something up there, it'll be picked up. But okay.
So Ken had another question for us, and it was how to receive the very best results in guided meditations. It was part of the whole question, but to me, that's its own separate, deserving of its own separate answer. Now, so my question for you, Oliver, is now guided meditations, there's different processes and tools in a given guided meditation, such as you can do chanting or mantras. You can have baby crying.
Which we have now upstairs.
You can have, we're going to stop this. Hey, Afua, can you guys maybe go in our room for about 15 minutes? Or in the office? Because we just need a little bit more time. Or is she going to go to bed? Is she going to try napping or no? What time? Well, no, it's only 1:30. Yeah, can you put her back in our room with you? Just for like 15 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, we've already got like a decent amount of stuff here.